March 31st, 2019. A Sunday afternoon in South Los Angeles. Nipsey Hussle is standing in the parking lot of his own clothing store, the one he built to revitalize the neighborhood that raised him. He's helping a friend who got out of prison get some new clothes. And then someone walks up. Someone he knows. Someone from his own gang. What happens next will take less than 2 minutes, but the aftermath will raise questions that are still with us today. There's this corner in South Los Angeles where Crenshaw Boulevard meets Slauson Avenue. That's where Ermias Asghedom built his empire. You might know him better as Nipsey Hussle, and on March 31st, 2019, that's where he died. Nipsey grew up in the Crenshaw district during the crack epidemic. His dad was Eritrean, his mom was Black American, and by the time he was a teenager, he was homeless and getting jumped into the Rollin 60s neighborhood Crips. In that environment, you either joined or you became a target. But Nipsey was different. He had this entrepreneurial brain that most people in his situation never get to develop. He started selling mixtapes out of his car trunk in the same parking lot where he'd eventually open Marathon Clothing. In 2013, he released his Crenshaw mixtape as a free download, but then he printed 1,000 physical copies and sold them for $100 each. Jay-Z bought 100 copies. That's $10,000. Suddenly, everyone understood that Nipsey wasn't playing the same game. By 2017, he'd gone from selling CDs out of his trunk to owning property on that same block. He opened Marathon Clothing and was buying back the entire strip mall to buy mixed-used housing so the community could own their own neighborhood. He co-founded Vector 90, this tech incubator designed to get kids from Crenshaw into Silicon Valley careers. And he was doing all of this while still claiming Rollin 60s. He was meeting with the LAPD to discuss gang violence prevention, but he never renounced his affiliation. That duality made him accessible. It also made him vulnerable. Eric Holder Jr. was also Rollin 60s. He grew up in Crenshaw as well. He also wanted to be a rapper. But while Nipsey was ascending to Grammy nominations, Holder was falling apart. At 19, Holder was diagnosed with auditory schizophrenia. In gang culture, mental illness gets interpreted as weakness or aggression. Holder tried to get help at mental health facilities, but nothing stuck. By 2019, he was basically homeless, watching Nipsey's success from a distance. Rumors had started circulating that Holder had snitched. Whether it was true almost didn't matter. In that world, the accusation alone is a death sentence. And if you're already hearing voices and struggling with reality, that rumor becomes gasoline on a fire. Sunday, March 31st, 2019. Nipsey shows up at Marathon Clothing around 2 in the afternoon. No security. He's there to help a friend named Keith Lathan, who'd finished a 20-year prison sentence. Nipsey wants to help get him fresh clothes before he sees his family. Around the same time, Eric Holder is driving with a woman named Brianita Nicholson, a Lyft driver he'd been casually seeing. Holder tells her to pull up to the strip mall for some food. When they pull in, Nicholson gets excited. "Oh, there goes Nipsey. He fine. I want to take a picture with him." That's what she said. Holder walks over to Nipsey. What happens next lasts about 4 minutes. Nipsey doesn't greet him with hostility. He greets him with a warning. "You need to address it," Nipsey tells him. "People got some paperwork on you." In gang terminology, paperwork means official documents proving you cooperated with law enforcement. Nipsey is saying, "I'm hearing rumors about you snitching, and there's supposedly some evidence. You need to handle this before it gets worse." Holder gets defensive. "Did you see any paperwork?" Nipsey admits he hasn't, but the word is out there. Nicholson takes her selfie with Nipsey and gets back into the car. Holder walks into Master Burger, orders chili cheese fries, then gets back into Nicholson's car. And this is when everything changes. Nicholson's testified that Holder suddenly pulled out a black semi-automatic handgun and started loading it. "What are you doing?" she asks. "You talk too much. I ought to slap you." Then he tells her to drive around the block and park in an alley. "Wait here. I'll be right back." That's 9 minutes from the conversation to the shooting. 9 minutes where he could have driven away. Instead, he loaded 2 guns, positioned his getaway driver, and walked back. At 3:18 p.m., Eric Holder walks back into that parking lot carrying 2 guns, a black semi-automatic in one, a silver revolver in the other. Surveillance cameras caught everything. He doesn't hesitate. He walks straight to Nipsey and starts shooting. Kerry Lathan gets shot in the back. The bullet goes through his bowel and damages his spine. He ends up in a wheelchair. Nipsey gets hit multiple times. Witnesses hear him say, "You got me." After Nipsey falls to the ground, already dying, Holder walks over and kicks him in the head, twice. Prosecutors later used that kick to prove this wasn't a heat-of-the-moment reaction. This was personal. Holder runs back to the alley. Drive, or I'll slap you." Nicholson floors it. She drops him off and goes home. It's only when she turns on the news that night that she realizes what she's a part of. The autopsy report is brutal. 11 gunshot wounds from at least 10 separately fired shots. 1 bullet cut through his spine. Even if he survived the head wound, he would have been paralyzed for life. He was pronounced dead at 3:55 p.m. The LAPD had crystal clear surveillance footage. By April 1st, they'd identified Holder. Brianita Nicholson saw her car on the news and went to the police station herself. She cooperated fully and got immunity. On April 2nd, Eric Holder Jr. was arrested. He checked himself into a mental health facility in Bellflower. His surrender at a psychiatric hospital was the first hint of the defense strategy his lawyers would then use. The trial started in June 2022. Deputy District Attorney John McKinney hammered on that first 9-minute cooling-off period. Holder had time to reconsider. Instead, he drove around, loaded his weapons, positioned his getaway driver, and then came back. That's premeditation. The kick to Nipsey's head proved this was calculated. Public defender Aaron Jansen argued that being called a snitch by Nipsey Hussle was such a severe provocation that it triggered a heat-of-passion response. In gang culture, being labeled a snitch is a death threat. Those 9 minutes weren't enough time for someone with auditory schizophrenia to calm down. Brianita Nicholson destroyed that defense. She described how he threatened her and loaded the gun deliberately. Herman Cowboy Douglas testified that Nipsey was trying to help Eric Holder. Kerry Lathan was the most heartbreaking witness. Even after being shot and paralyzed, he refused to identify Holder in court. He was still living by the no snitching code even after becoming a victim himself. On July 6, 2022, the jury came back, guilty of first-degree murder. They rejected the heat-of-passion defense. 9 minutes was enough time to make a choice. On February 22, 2023, the judge sentenced Eric Holder Jr. to 60 years to life in prison, 25 years to life for the murder, another 25 for using a firearm, 10 years for assault. Judge Jackie said, quote, "I am very mindful of what was presented as to Mr. Holder's mental health. I'm also mindful of the devastation caused to the victims and their families. I believe this sentence balances the two." Nipsey Hussle wasn't killed during a crime. He was killed while he was helping someone in the parking lot of a store he built to save his community. Rival gangs in LA declared a truce and marched together to honor him. Vector 90 is still operating. The Marathon clothing brand lives on. Destination Crenshaw is under construction, a permanent monument to his vision. Nipsey used to say, "The highest human act is to inspire." His death was a brutal interpretation of that act. The man himself was stopped, but the marathon he started is still running. Thanks for listening to 10-Minute Murder, bingeable true crime stories. My name is Joe, I'm the host, and let's get to an email. Subject, background noise. Hey Joe, do you record at home or somewhere else? I'm always impressed by how clean the audio sounds, especially in comparison to other true crime podcasts that I listen to. Kara in Red Bank, New Jersey. And Kara, I do record at home. I'm not like in a bedroom or living room or sitting in my kitchen doing this. I'm in a studio that I built here at my house. It's actually a converted mud room. And if you're picturing a small mud room, you're wrong. It's, for some reason, this house has a giant mud room, and I didn't need all this space for a mud room, so I converted it into a recording studio. I did that before I actually did the podcast, because before the podcast, I just did voiceover work. It's a pretty good chance that you've heard my voice on TV or on radio, on something you've heard before this podcast was ever even a thing. And I recorded it right here in this room. So during the pandemic, when I decided that I wanted to get into podcasting, I already had all the stuff: the studio, the microphone, the whole 9 yards. And another reason that the audio sounds very good is because I have a very good microphone. A lot of podcasters start out with like a $30, $50, $100 microphone. This one I'm using, it cost $1,000. And I know that sounds crazy, but in the world of voiceover, you need a really good microphone. But when you get a really good microphone, it picks up everything in the entire room that you're in. So you need a studio in order to use that microphone. So that's why I have a studio. Thank you for the question. And if you listening to me right now are a brand new listener to this podcast, make sure you hit subscribe and then go to 10minutemurder.com. You can go to the website, send me an email. You can also sign up for the newsletter. You can check out the murder blog, all kinds of things on the website, 10minutemurder.com. Before you run off, if you're enjoying the podcast, please share it with your friends and your family and rate it 5 stars wherever that's possible. Thank you again for listening to 10 Minute Murder. See you next time.